Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Orange Crush podcast, powered by Chick-fil-A and Newton Scott and Associates. If you guys are hungry while watching this podcast, maybe turn on the radio or turn on the Bluetooth, whatever you got in your car. Head over to Chick-fil-A and get yourself some food. That's probably what I'll be doing after I finish editing this. Faxon, I don't know about your lunch plans, but it feels pretty good. You go get yourself some Friday Chick-fil-A. Treat yourself, guys. Come on, you guys deserve it. You've earned it, and get another edition of Fridays with Faxon. We're going to go a little more Clemson heavy on this one for Syracuse this week, and then we'll do some rapid-fire games at the end of it. Thank you guys, as always. Faxon, before we get started, how are you, man? Welcome to the show, bud.
Yeah, I'm great. Obviously, just had my show at Chick-fil-A in Clemson, so definitely can hammer that home that y'all need to go with Chick-fil-A for all your game day, all your tailgating needs, etc. But just excited to be here with Fridays with Faxon on the program and on the Orange Crush podcast, and excited to talk some ball, whether that be Clemson. I know we're going to get a little bit deeper in the weeds here today on Tiger football or other games across the country. So I have a decree to make 30 seconds into the podcast. It's Solid Orange Friday, and I'm wearing purple. Hand up. That's on me.
Wow.
Nobody call me out in the comments section. We do have an orange paw, but that's on me. Weird laundry cycle right now, and we're going to stick to that excuse. No further questions from me.
Will you study the tape for the next laundry cycle and do a little better next time?
Not comfortable asking that question. Going to plead the fifth.
All right. Well, a question that Swinney wasn't comfortable answering at Tuesday's press conference. This week was pretty nuclear from Swinney. The last time I remember it being this tense around here in Tiger Town was a few years ago when a certain radio caller came in and started ruffling feathers. Let's just call it that. And this week, Faxon, for a lot of reasons, the team's kind of on a downward trajectory. Things are a little hairy around here. And at the center of it is Dabo Swinney and his rantings that have brought not only local attention, but sitting there at lunch with my dad and First Take is airing out, talking about Dabo Swinney and those Clemson rants. So there's a lot of things to dive into. So I guess before we get started, I don't think we can tell the story of Syracuse this week without first getting back to Tuesday. And just, I'd love to get your impressions of it. You're sort of the first line of defense before they get into it at the Roar, and Swinney's airing at 11. So I'd just love to hear what you heard, your reaction, and how it's kind of simmered for the last couple of days.
Yeah, Coach Swinney is somebody that obviously has accomplished so much in this sport that you earn a lot of equity and leash, in my opinion, with what you say with the media. And I think that with what we know about Dabo Swinney and with how not online he is, not social media he's about his process, about his people. He wants to come into work. He wants to coach football. He wants to go home with his beautiful family, beautiful wife, and just have a great time, right? Like, he doesn't care about all the online narratives. He doesn't care about all the articles, the press clippings, even my radio show. I'm sure Coach Swinney doesn't give a rip what I have to say about his football team, right? So I think it's just Dabo Swinney being Dabo Swinney. And I think that because he has that mindset and demeanor towards the media and towards the press, he uses these opportunities as motivational tactics and or megaphones for his football team. And, there is a human element to this as well that I think people need to realize with Coach Swinney. Like, if he's at the point where he feels like he needs to defend himself and remind people of accolades, I think that kind of shows the state of frustration amongst the fan base with the current results with the football team. So I thought it kind of got blown out of proportion. I know there were a couple clips and quotes here or there that got taken and ran with onto, national shows and national storylines. But at the end of the day, like, I think the main takeaway from this week is that Clemson really needs to beat Syracuse. And Clemson really probably needs to hang 40-plus points against Syracuse, if we're being honest with ourselves, to see the ball go through the hoop, get Cade Klubnik playing a little bit more confident football. And that's really where I've geared my attention towards this week. Swinney's going to have the press conference every week at Tuesday during my show. So I get to listen live and in real time and react. And I didn't really have too much of an issue with anything he had to say, to be honest. I think that the main topic of itinerary should be the football game being played on Saturday.
Yeah, and that's what we'll shift to here. And it's fascinating. You get his sort of outburst. You get Brian Kelly's outburst. And I think the main thread line is that you're using that microphone as a way to talk to the team without having to call a meeting. And so we'll see if it juices up the guys against the Syracuse team. When I had put this out on Twitter a few days ago, just doing some general prep and research for this game, and Syracuse's defense is at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to whatever statistical category you want to throw into the equation. It's not a great football team on that side of the ball, despite what Fran Brown has built, which has been pretty good, but struggles against UConn. Tennessee took them to the woodshed. and Colgate put up a decent little fight against Syracuse up there in New York. So just a interesting game where it feels like there's a fork in the road of this is probably the last opportunity for at least for the next couple of weeks, because this is the only result Clemson fans will get to simmer with until they travel up to North Carolina to fight Bill Belichick and the Tar Heels, which will be its own interesting circus of a story when we get to that juncture. But this feels like an important piece. You get 2 weeks. You either are going to be sitting with another disappointing loss, a frustratingly close win like Troy, or it's an opportunity for a bounce back. And it maybe look like the Clemson team that fans had expected in 2025. It's not a great Syracuse team. It's not a great Clemson team either. But you'd have to think this is probably the point that Clemson either figures it out or this is just who they are.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. And, when you look at the situation right now for Clemson, I think you're at a little bit of a crossroads, to be candid. I think you're at a juncture where you really are in need of finding a way to see the ball go through the hoop and finding a way to establish a little bit more confidence in your team. And offensively, this team really is not going to have an opponent on the schedule where they have a better opportunity to break out of the slump than Syracuse. I think that's my main takeaway from the entire week is I go down the schedule, I look at the opponents, I look at the talent level, I look at where the breaks are on the schedule and what the quality of defense and defensive coordinator, et cetera, is. This is the moment. This has to be the moment of the coming out party for the Clemson offense, or I'm not sure we're going to see it to the level of what we saw it last season, where everybody was falling in love with quarterback Cade Klubnik. And that feels like a lifetime ago, to be honest with you, with the way he's kind of been slammed the last 3 weeks in Tiger Town. But I think that's my main takeaway, Grayson, is that it's put up or shut up time in Tiger Town. Clemson really needs to find a way to establish identity offensively. And this is a great game to do it. You've got a great runway against a Syracuse defense that doesn't bring a lot of quality or talent, and they're really leaky in the back end in that secondary in a similar way to what Georgia Tech was. You didn't take advantage of it last week outside of the 73-yard touchdown to Wesco. I'm looking for more deep shots over the top this week, especially with the potential return of Antonio Williams.
Yeah, and I think with the ACC availability report last night, all of the key players, Tristan Lee, Khalil Barnes, Elijah Thurman, Antonio Williams, all listed as probable, likely means they're going to play on Saturday. And that, like you had mentioned, and we got to give credit where credit's due, because some accounts won't. With Mr. Faxon showed us his stat diving. And I'd like to say I was a witness for this last Sunday when we were sitting down watching Drake May and the Patriots catch a W against Miami. But sort of let you kind of take the wheel on this one and explain what you had found, because we'd run a story on it on TigerNet, but for those who haven't seen that, it's pretty revealing stuff that Zero may provide that shot in the arm that this offense hasn't necessarily had and may open up some things down the road. Before we get back to this video, we'd like to thank the title sponsor for this podcast, Newton, Scott, and Associates. This team is headlined by Jeff Scott, former Clemson assistant coach and two-time national champion, as well as Eric Newton, a longtime local and trusted real estate partner. These two are teaming up to provide a first-class experience for all Clemson fans. Whether you're looking to buy, sell, or build in the upstate area of South Carolina, you can trust Newton, Scott, and Associates. Choose the same team that Clemson coaches are selecting when they're looking to buy, sell, or build, all the way from Tigertown to Lake Keowee. For more information, you can find them at newtonscottsc.com or by calling the number 864-722-9062. That's 864-722-9062. Now, let's get back to the video.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Cade Klubnik's touchdown to interception ratio and in his numbers per game in his career with versus without Antonio Williams. And in my opinion, there's a pretty drastic difference in the quality of quarterback play for Cade Klubnik. Numbers right here, 21 games played, 20 games started in Cade's career with Antonio Williams, which includes the ACC championship game back in 2022, 47 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, 34.2 points per game for the Tigers in those games, 262 passing yards per game, 2.24 touchdowns to 0.57 interceptions. I think everybody would take those numbers right now, right? Those are great numbers. If you're putting up 35 PPG, your QB's got a great TD interception ratio, and he's throwing for over 250 a game. You got a good chance to win a lot of football games. Without Antonio Williams, 11 games played, 11 games started, 12 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Clemson averages almost 10 entire points per game less at 24.3 PPG. He averages 62 less passing yards at 200 yards a game, 1.09 touchdowns, and 0.73 interceptions per game for Cade Klubnik. So his touchdown production more than doubles. His interception production goes down. He has more yards per game with vastly more touchdowns and then less interceptions per game as well, with Clemson putting up 10 points plus per game more with Antonio Williams. The proof's in the pudding and the data doesn't lie. I think there's more issues than Antonio Williams, because I've seen a lot of people, like one dude chirped me on Twitter this week and said that like I was saying that Antonio was going to solve all the issues. It's not what I'm saying. I really just did some data mining that you saw in real time at your house on Sunday and went back through the game log out of curiosity to pull the stats, because that's how my brain works. So do I think he's going to solve all your issues, especially on the O-line? No, he can't do that. But he is going to give his quarterback his number one weapon back, his security blanket, and his level of comfort is going to increase. And then the data and the history we have would indicate that Cade will see an uptick in production and play with Antonio Williams on the field. So that's kind of my 2 cents on Antonio. I'm really hoping he can provide the bolster this offense needs, because they need one right now.
A big one. And against a defense like this, it sort of is that key and that cog that opens things up, where he's really going to do a lot of his damage over the middle of the field, just particularly where he lines up. As your slot guy, someone who also can take your top off the defense, occasionally on the boundary, but you kind of like him more as your slot, while Wesco and Moore occupy that boundary. But it's just going to open some things up, going to make your quarterback a lot more comfortable. That note on the offensive line, though, I think I'd said this on your show yesterday, I haven't hated the play from that unit. I think since that second half opening drive against Troy all the way to GT, I feel like the line's been more than solid, and this is a group that's rotating still, missing a couple starters. Elijah Thurman played really well in that second half against Troy before he got hurt practice leading up to Georgia Tech. And then you've had Tristan Lee out since LSU. So it's just a line that's been sort of playing with a little bit of a crutch. They've been sort of limping into this action, but it looks like they're going to get some reinforcements back, which should all come together. It feels like this has got to be that perfect storm. But I'd love to talk about the other side, because I feel like with Tom Allin, so much expectation, so much hype was a part of that acquisition in the offseason. And more or less, I think points-wise, you look at it and go, he's played fine, but I think that's the word that bothers folks, is that it's just fine right now. Where do you see this group? How does it get better against Syracuse? It's an offense that is going to run a lot against this Tom Allin defense. Steve Angeli has tossed it over the yard, as Swinney has said in his Tuesday press conference. He leads the nation in passing yards. Granted, 2 of the 3 opponents, the competition's probably not as worthy as you'd want it to be, but still an offense that's capable and very much comfortable with their identity.
Yeah, and that identity is a big word, right? It's air raid, it's tempo, it's chucking it all over the lot. They've got a lot of really good, talented, skill position players. I mean, Gill, Justice Simmons, and then you got Valari, the big tight end that's the leading receiver on this team. I mean, he's got more than enough weapons to throw the ball to related to quarterback Steve Angeli, and that's why he leads the nation in passing. That's why he has more passing yards than Clemson has total yards this season through 3 games. Now, level of competition is definitely has to be taken into account there, as they have UConn and Colgate back-to-back weeks, and those are roll the ball out games, or at least they should be, as they got taken to overtime at home by UConn. But anyways, offensively, I've got no concerns that Syracuse is going to be able to produce. I think the keys for Clemson on the other side of the ball are early down defense, incompletions, nuke tempo. You want to get up to the ball and you want to run quick and you want to go, 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 go. Well, a 1st and 10 incompletion puts you behind the chains on 2nd down. Then 2nd down's a throwing down, and you have the ability to pin your ears back on 2nd down and go after the quarterback and Angeli. And a thing about Angeli is, he's a pocket passer. He's not super mobile. He's got a little bit of mobility to him, but he's not anywhere near Haynes King. He's really not even as mobile as a guy like Garrett Nussmeier, who actually evaded pressure, I thought, pretty darn well in week 1 against Clemson and showed a little bit more mobility than even I knew he had in the tank. And then Goose Crowder for Troy. He's a guy that's pretty mobile and moving out. So I think this is the least mobile of the quarterbacks Clemson has faced thus far this season. But I also think it's arguably the most talented passer outside of Nussmeier that you face this season. So it's a double-edged sword. Tom Allen's guys better be ready to play. and especially in the secondary, because there's going to be a lot of stress on that secondary, and Clemson's got to win first down to prevent them from getting in that flow state of getting in the tempo and getting right up to the ball. And also for a defense that we've seen gassed right throughout the course of the season, I do think that the tempo has a chance to work against Syracuse here, because they're not a team that wants to sustain drives and drag out drives and keep the defense on the field. Thus far, we've seen the method to beating Clemson replicated twice by LSU and Georgia Tech, and it was time of possession, establishing a run game, winning early downs, and taking time off the play clock to keep that defense on the field. Syracuse, from a principles standpoint, doesn't really believe in that. They trust that their guys are good enough to go and put up points regardless. So I'm interested to see that contrast in styles between Clemson's previous opponents and the Orange, because I actually think there's a good chance this works against Syracuse tomorrow. If Clemson can get that first down pressure we're alluding to, and the defense can get some quick 3-and-outs, then you can get Adam Randall rolling in the run game, and you can almost replicate the path to success that teams have beat you with this season and throw it back in Syracuse's face. So that's where I'm at on the defensive side of the ball. I think Avion Terrell is going to have a pick tomorrow, potentially a pick 6, and we're going to start to see some more production from number 8. I'm expecting a big game from Avion.
Yeah, what was really revealing on Sunday was Swinney calling the perimeter soft and really kind of challenging that side of the ball, particularly that level on the defensive side, where I think you review the tape early Sunday morning, you try to get an idea of what Syracuse is going to do, and you realize they're going to toss it all over the yard, and you make that challenge to your secondary of, you guys have kind of beaten up in the last 3 games. You've been sort of picked on, especially in the perimeter. They'll run it outside and see if their corners are willing to tackle. And one of Terrell's best traits, I feel, is his ability to get his hands dirty, even though he's undersized. And Hampton, a guy that's really physical, has gotten picked on a lot. Jaden Lucas, a physical corner, gotten picked on a lot. Brandon Strozier was in there for a few snaps, just as a victim of the way those corners would play. You throw in a guy that maybe you don't fully trust out there. So big week for them, big week for that pass rush as well. It feels like this is the opportunity for a guy like TJ Parker to finally probably come into form. A guy like Peter Woods, I hate the double team excuse. I really do, where it feels like there just hasn't been, I'm sure on tape that you see some things that are a little bit more minute than what I'm able to access. And obviously what I have is YouTube TV's replay system, where I'm able to just click, rewind 15 seconds and click. And sure, he's taking up double teams. He's gobbling it up, but there's nobody taking advantage of that on the other side. I've liked DeMonte Capart's play. I think Will Held has lived up to the expectation that fans had for him coming out of Purdue. He's been great. He's been arguably their best defensive lineman through the first 3 games. And so big week for them as well. And while we kind of capture a bow, would love to get your score prediction if you got one. And just final thoughts on Syracuse before we move to some of the other games this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go 45-16 Clemson. I think it's going to be a blowout tomorrow, and I think it's going to be ugly. And I think that, there's a lot of paranoia within the fan base right now, and it's well-entitled paranoia because the team has not played up to standard for 3 weeks, and the crux of the people that are siding with Syracuse in this matchup are wrapping back to the Troy game. Well, Troy doesn't have as much talent as Syracuse, and they struggle with Troy. I get it. It was also 24-0 in the second half, and it was an absolute demolition of Troy for the last 30 minutes of that football game. So Clemson has showcased that they're able to put B to A when they need to against inferior competition, as they did frequently throughout the course of last year. And I'm just hoping that Antonio Williams back in the fray can be the pendulum shifting moment for this offense, and they can have a coming out party. I don't think very highly of Syracuse as a football team. Last week, I picked Clemson to win. They lost to Georgia Tech, but I was expecting a competitive game because I had Georgia Tech in my playoff preseason. I had LSU in my playoff preseason. These are 2 of the best 10 teams in the country, in my opinion, that Clemson has lost to, and LSU and Georgia Tech. So I think there's a vast difference in quality between those 2 teams in Syracuse. I think their tempo is going to hurt them more than it's going to help them tomorrow. And I'm expecting Clemson to come out and play motivated football in front of a rowdy crowd.
And don't tell the AP poll Georgia Tech's a top 10 team, because they probably aren't going to sniff that till
they're
the playoff thing.
They're
garbage poll.
For no reason. They're sleeping for no reason. The AP poll is terrible. Don't pay attention to the AP poll. It's terrible.
It's garbage stuff. We could have a whole separate 40-minute podcast about the AP poll, and rightfully so. Maybe we need to do like a separate Fridays with Faxon part 2 about how, and that's another problem is I'm on a tangent here. But it's the same thing with the college football playoff, where they expect these athletic directors on the board or on the committee that are dealing with the most stressful time in college athletics, and you expect me to have them watch 10 p.m. USC versus whatever community college they're playing that time of the week. Come on, guys. Let's get a serious group of people together who actually watch these things, and we'll probably have a better product as a result of it. But anyways, speaking of a better product, we're going to get a lot of them this weekend. And we're going to be circling back to Clemson's good old friend and Brent Venables, who has also been the subject of conversation this week.
Man, that
So
seems good.
that's a good Oklahoma team. They're playing
Yeah.
Auburn in the Jackson Arnold Bowl. And Norman's going to be another fiery spot here with some SEC ball. Auburn, I think they're a little ahead of schedule here, Faxon. I like John Mateer in this Oklahoma team. I think they're actually probably is right now, besides Georgia, one of the best teams in the SEC. And they've been really playing well. It feels like they know what they are. Identity has been rocking and rolling in Norman. And so they took down Michigan and Bryce Underwood. And I think they're going to take down an Auburn team that's probably a year away from being serious under Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. I think Auburn's a 6.5-point favorite, or Oklahoma rather is a 6.5-point favorite at home, and I'm anticipating them to win and cover. If anybody knows the weaknesses of Jackson Arnold, logic would say it has to be Brent Venables, right? Like the guy coached him as his starting quarterback for years, and now the defensive mastermind who knows the game more than, in my opinion, anybody else in the country on that side of the football has a chance to go against a former player of his. So I think that this could be really ugly for Jackson Arnold and really ugly for Auburn's offense. And I actually think that this could get ugly for Auburn in general. But I'm interested to see how Mateer actually handles himself against upper echelon competition, because the Michigan game was one thing, and I think he was fine. I don't think he was great against Temple by any means. And then in the opener, they weren't playing anybody. So I think this is going to be a little bit of a test and a step up in competition for Mateer. I'm intrigued to see how he handles that. But I think Oklahoma is the better football team with more talent that's better coached. And they're going to probably handle business this weekend. Something in the range of 31-20 seems realistic to me, with OU taking the cake.
Yeah, I think by the time we'll be done with Dabo, there'll be a halftime score for this one. And I think Oklahoma, I could see like a 17-3, 20-10 type of thing where Oklahoma's up comfortably and they sort of roll the rest of the way in Norman. This is a fun one. I don't know what time this is particularly. I didn't get to scan it. But Michigan and Nebraska feels like that game for the Cornhuskers and Matt Rule to take down a big-time opponent.
Yeah.
Obviously, Michigan isn't as good this year as they have been in years past, but that's still a big brand coming into your house. A lot of attention on this one. This sort of feels like that next step for Raiola in this program. I'm not sure they take it. I think I trust Price, probably this Michigan roster, to make a few more plays than Nebraska at this juncture. If they're playing this game in November, I'd feel a lot better about it. But what say you? Who does Nebraska go 4-0? I feel like 4-0 for the first time in Lord knows how long over there in Nebraska.
I like Michigan. I like Michigan. I think they're going to be playing motivated football. No Sharon Moore in this one, as he's suspended for we're not even going to get into that today. You guys know. If you know Michigan football, you know why he's suspended. But I think Bryce Underwood's one of the most talented players in the country. I'm really high on his development long term. I don't like the infrastructure around him this year, to be candid. Wide receivers are running backs are not the staple they've had in years past. O-line is not as good as it has been in years past either. But Matt Rule is like 2-23 in 25 games against ranked opponents, and Michigan's ranked. So until he shows me that he can play big boy ball with the big boys, then I'm going to pick Michigan in this spot. And also, as you said, like, when's the last time Nebraska football won a big game like this? When's the last time Nebraska football went 4-0? I do think that mentally Michigan's going to be more equipped to go into Lincoln and come out with a big time win this weekend. So I don't feel super confident either way. I don't really like watching the Big Ten. I don't think it's a super entertaining brand of football, but I'll be tuned into this one to watch Underwood and Raiola, if nothing else. And I think Michigan finds a way to get a close win.
The quarterback play in the Big Ten has gotten a lot better. You got the Dante Moore over there at Oregon. Bryce Underwood's going to be a superstar by this time next year. There's just a couple other pieces. I don't mind Julian Sayin at Ohio State.
He's a good player.
But I think Ohio State overall is just a better roster. So they're not asking their quarterback to do too much, which we saw in the Texas game. He really just had to keep that car at 25 miles an hour and not go any further or not go any slower. He was driving in the neighborhood. It's like he had a driver's permit. And it's you're teaching with the parent. They're sitting there in the front seat and they got their arm on the rail. And you're like, Mom, I'm going only 20 miles an hour. It's okay. And they're bracing for impact at that first stop. And so whenever Julian Sayin's got to go out on the freeway, we'll find out how that one goes. But anyways, a game that I think you had mentioned, I don't know if it was for this one or for Florida, but you mentioned kind of ugly. I don't know why College Game Day's not going to Florida and Miami, are they? I know that there's like
I think that they are.
Oh, dear.
I'm not 100% positive. To be honest, with Tiger tailgate obligations, I don't really get the chance to watch game day, just to be completely honest. I don't really keep up with the game day stuff. That's not I don't love college game day like the traditional college football fans do. Maybe people are going to kill me in the comments for that, but I do enough research on this during the week and have my whole life to where I already feel like I'm equipped to go into the weekend. Like, don't get me wrong. If I get the opportunity, I'll flip it on and have it as background noise, but I don't care about what those jokers have to say about the games, just in all honesty.
Did you go to the college game day in 22 when they came to Clemson?
No.
That was I lived right by Bowman at the time. And so we didn't have to like camp out like everybody else. We just kind of walked down at 6:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
It's a good time. It's a good time. Got to see Lee Corso in person.
I think game day's down there, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, well, I don't know why it is, because this one's not going to be very entertaining or game day worthy. Miami's going to put Florida in the woodshed. This is a game that, hold on. I see the face. I'm going to let you interject here. I see. Is this a Cristobal game? Am I getting sucked in?
Listen, okay, let's take a step back. All right, let's take a step back. Told you at the beginning of the year that I was picking Miami over Notre Dame, and I thought that they're going to make the college football playoff this year. Said I thought I have the really good chance that Miami wins the ACC. Think this is Miami's year. Don't think this is going to be a blowout, and don't think this is a guaranteed win either. And do think that desperation factor and Billy's job security and all of that are in play here. I think the in-state rivalry matchup, bragging rights, creates a more competitive environment. I think Miami's lack of a home field advantage and playing in that big NFL stadium that doesn't necessarily always get filled in general, but likely will be filled with just as many Florida fans this weekend as it will Miami fans. I think there's a lot of advantages in this matchup for Florida. Now, they're banged up on both sides of the ball, which is my biggest concern in this matchup. But if there's anybody in the country that is equipped right now to play trenches for trenches football with Miami, it's Florida. Florida's trenches are really freaking good. Florida threw a pick six last week. LSU had 13 points of offense on Florida. USF had 18 points of offense on Florida and scored 0 touchdowns. Florida's given up 1 touchdown this season. This is not a roll the ball out, win it by 25 type of game. And Florida is better than people realize. I know we want to kick dirt on them. And I know like we're, Billy Napier. They lost by 2 to a pretty darn good football team that has another ranked win, albeit at home. And you should never lose to South Florida, but you gave up 0 touchdowns. And then you lost to LSU in a close and competitive football game where your quarterback threw 5 interceptions. You only lost by 10. And really, if you remove the pick 6, by 3 with 5 picks. 5. If Lagway just can keep it clean, this is going to be a really competitive football game, in my opinion. I disagree with everybody's evaluation on this. I'm standing alone in our contest on the Roar at plus 7.5 on Florida. I'm very confident they cover that number. Very, very confident they cover that number. And this team is a lot better than people realize with the Jimmies and Joes. They can match Miami's physicality. They can match Miami's physical, kind of demeanor that they like to play with up front in the trenches, because their trenches are equally as physical. So I like Florida. Plus the 7.5. I'm not going to go as far as picking them to win the game outright, but don't be shocked if we're coming back on Monday and we're talking about Billy Napier marching into Miami Gardens at Hard Rock and coming out victorious with a shocker win.
Man, that would be something. It would be the shock of the weekend for me. Miami's played a really great brand of football so far, and I feel like they sort of earned some confidence from me when they didn't fall into the trap of USF. Yep. And granted, I think USF's going to be the G5 rep, and they're in that driver's seat right now in the college football playoff. But that felt like the classic Cristobal spot where USF's a team of destiny. Miami on paper is absolutely so much better than USF, whatever roster they're throwing out there in the Gardens. And Miami clobbers them. And it feels like this is a Hurricanes team that has finally might have figured it out. Now, Cristobal, if you do this to me, man, I'm going to be so upset. But I'm falling in the trap. I think that was the game that, I know it's only USF that did it for me, but that felt like the spot where he was going to trip and fall on his own face. I think this is a game where Billy Napier, I like Florida. I like what they've done so far. I feel like they're a lot better than 1 and 2 would indicate. But I think Miami's also on that other side of the football here where they're close to that title contention spot. And what they've shown throughout the season so far, I think they're gearing up for a big win here. I know Florida's played well. Lagway's play really concerns me. And the part of that is you got to have an offense in Miami that can take advantage of some of those turnovers. That's going to happen with DJ Lagway. I think Carson Beck's got in a really clean pocket, and we've seen what he can do with that. The playmakers that Miami has, much better than Georgia's, kept dropping a bunch of footballs. So give me Miami in this one. I'm going to wipe the points here. I think Miami's going to win big here. this could be that limping moment that Billy Napier, we finally start to see a different regime change in Florida. I think this is the game that starts to take place here.
All right,
But
we'll agree to
go ahead.
disagree. I'm excited.
Hey, this is the first time in a while we've disagreed on something, so this is a monumental moment in this segment.
And I'm in like the ridiculous minority nationwide and locally. Like the most bet ticket right now at all public sports books is Miami with the spread on both the handle and both the amount of wagers that they're receiving. I told you I'm 11-1 in my little pick'em contest we play at the Roar every week when I'm the one taking Florida spread. Florida covers the number this weekend.
See, the lone wolf, man. You're taking on a new identity. So we'll see. That game's, I think, at night. So that's 7:30. So we'll be able to watch that one. And after all the Syracuse stuff is said and done. But there's a couple more we want to get into. Illinois and Indiana, 7:30 on NBC. On its face value, doesn't really move the needle for me. But this is one of those teams that are probably going to be in the college football playoff. Then this is one of those wins you need to be able to prove to the resume. Because neither of these teams are beating Oregon. None of these teams are beating Ohio State. But you could maybe get in off a 10-2 with this being sort of that circle the resume thing. I like Illinois in this spot and what they've built. I think Indiana and Cignetti's roster took kind of a step back. I like their offense a little bit better than maybe where they were last year, but I think Illinois at this juncture, better roster, better playmakers. I think Altmaier just makes a few more throws, and I think that we're going to be talking about Illinois as a team that maybe isn't contending, but I think they'll be comfortably in the playoff.
I'm going to take Indiana. We differ in our opinion here as well, and I think Indiana is going to be a team that might stumble their way into the college football playoff again. I think there's a chance Fernando Mendoza is the number one pick in the draft next year, and I think there's a chance that he's potentially contending for the Heisman Trophy when we look up at the end of the season. I don't think people realize how good the Cal transfer quarterback is for Indiana. I don't think people realize how good Indiana's offensive line is, and the main thing that people were saying about Indiana last year when they played no one, which was legitimate, but everybody picked Notre Dame in blowout fashion in South Bend. Everybody was like, oh, they're going to overwhelm them with the physicality and the size and the toughness, and that just didn't happen. Like Indiana played a very competitive football game. Their trenches held up with Notre Dame's trenches, and Love made one more play than Indiana made, and they won the football game, and they deserved to win the football game. But Indiana was right there with the team that went to the national championship in their place against a very physical, hard-nosed football team. And when I look at this Indiana team, I think the offensive line is better. I think that there's a chance that the rushing attack is better. I think Mendoza is better. Now, skill position players on the outside, I have a little worry when it comes to that and a bit of trepidation because I don't think that Indiana has world beaters on defense or at their skill positions. But, you know, Illinois just has, I said this preseason, Illinois just screams 9-3, barely missing the playoff to me. There's just something about it in my gut that's been my evaluation the whole time. They won the turnover margin by 5 against Duke, which I think kind of skewed people's viewpoint about how that game actually went because Duke outgained Illinois in that game. They just peed down their leg and fumbled a punt in their own territory and then fumbled again in plus territory and then Mensa threw a pick in plus territory. But that was a competitive game in the mid-second quarter and Duke lost the turnover margin by 5. You can't lose football games when you win the turnover margin by 5, guys. 9 times out of 10, you're winning that game running away. So I'm going to fade Illinois a little bit. I think that the juice might be a little bit too much for this team. And I think Mendoza is better than Altmaier. And for your Altmaier's going to make a few more throws, I think Mendoza is going to make a few more throws. So it's going to be a good competitive football game between two good Big Ten football teams that both have a chance to make the college football playoff. And I really do believe that. I think these are 2 8-9+ win teams. But I like Indiana with the home crowd. Give me the Hoosiers.
Got a little bit of a separation here between the two. This is nice, though, because we'll be able to report next Friday.
Oh, yeah.
And be
able some bragging rights.
Yeah, we can. I don't know why we haven't started keeping score yet. We get Hoodie involved, obviously, when he returns to this segment here soon. But, man, like this is an opportunity, and this makes me excited. We have some bragging rights on the line on Saturday night between a few of these games. Faxon, any more final thoughts before we get off here? A nice little half hour of football. A lot of Clemson breakdowns. Guys, be sure to follow his stuff, Faxon Sports and Faxon PXP on Twitter.
Yeah, give me a follow over there if you don't. Always pumping out Clemson content, and I think I'm worth the follow over there. A little bit biased, obviously, but one game that we didn't mention that I have my eye on that could be intriguing this weekend, just with college football playoff implications. Tulane's on the road at Ole Miss, and Tulane's 3-0 with 2 pretty quality wins on their schedule already. South Florida and Tulane look like the 2 best group of 5s in the country this year. I think those 2 are going to be the ones going to the wire down the stretch to see who bids for that. Another ACC game that I find some intrigue in, NC State Duke. That's always a good matchup. Duke's looking to get up off the pine after losing to Tulane. Again, turnover margin. Mensa throws for 1 billion yards, and the defense can't get a stop with that team. And then a couple more quick hitters before we get on the road here, Grayson, not to bore the audience. Sam Levitt and Arizona State are going on the road to Waco to play Sawyer Robertson and Baylor. Pretty big matchup there within the Big 12, as those are elimination games in the Big 12, right? You're not getting any media help. You're probably not going to have a second bid from your league. And if you do, somebody's going to have to run the table. That's essentially an elimination game between two of the better teams of the Big 12. And then speaking of the Big 10, 11 p.m. on Fox, Lincoln Riley's got another one in Maeva at QB. I've been watching this USC team a ton because I love watching Lincoln coach and call offense. They had a really good result last week against Purdue. I get it's Purdue, but they're 3-0, and they're playing 3-0 Michigan State with Aiden Childs, who's a talented quarterback, and their head coach, Jonathan Smith, marching out to Los Angeles across the country. So I'm excited to watch that one on the night slate for sure as well. And last thing before we get out of here, Cal's at San Diego State. Cal might have the best quarterback in this league, and he's 18 years old, and he's a true freshman. They're 3-0. They're going to be 4-0 because San Diego State blows. Just watch out for that Cal quarterback. That's all I got to say.
Watch out. There's a lot of good quarterbacks in the ACC. This was a point that I wanted to make before we got to the season starting. It's a great league with quarterbacks.
If that kid's at Cal next year, they are throwing him a Brinks truck. Let me just tell you that right now. If that kid's at Cal next year, that they're ponying up well into the $5 million plus range, because he's going to have SEC suitors banging down his door, and his agent's probably already getting phone calls.
That and Bailey from NC State. Those are two quarterbacks that are going to be on the move potentially.
Future Miami quarterback CJ Bailey.
Oh dear, Miami's got a Miami. I'm waiting for the day where Miami finds its freshman 5-star, and they're like the Indianapolis Colts of the ACC, where they keep getting these 1-year rentals. Yeah, but they don't have their Carson Wentz facts, and Minnesota does.
Oh, man, I can't wait for this weekend. Spot the ball. I'm wearing purple for a reason. Skull.
Oh my God. So we've done a T-pose for you. You've done the seatbelt, and now you've done the skull thing. We got something out of you on Friday. That's fantastic. Yep. But guys, thank you as always for tuning into the Orange Crush podcast and this little Clemson preview / Fridays with Faxon. It was like a crossover within a crossover. So we always love to have that. If you're traveling this weekend to Clemson for this game, travel safe. And if you see any of us, feel free to say hi. I'd love to talk to some TigerNet folks. And if you want to tell Faxon his show is amazing and nothing more, then go ahead and do that. Guys, thank you as always for tuning in. Subscribe for more. Let us know what you want to hear next. God bless y'all.